What's up, everyone? Really good to be here with you today. Everyone's running a little bit behind schedule, so I'm going to try and pick it up and pick up a little extra time. I'm supposed to have 30. I'll try and do it in 25. I wish there was time for Q&A because I think that's where a lot of the values derive, but no Q&A today, so let's get into it. The topic that I want to talk about today is a new concept that we're talking about a lot, and I'm hearing a lot in the market around go-to-market bloat. I'm going to be talking about what it is, how to solve it, what the implications are around how it impacts financial profiles, especially when you think about as a CEO, a CFO, or even as a revenue leader, how you need to understand this concept and how it impacts your strategy. So first, to level set, I know a lot of people in the room, private companies or early stage companies, this is public SaaS data. And so in the public SaaS, there's 80 publicly traded SaaS companies. They report their financials on S1s. Median growth rate by quarter has declined by more than 50% over the past 4 years, especially over the past 2 years. You can see that sharp decline down to 18% median growth. And in line with that, cost of acquisition and customer acquisition cost payback period has increased by almost 100%, specifically over the past 2 years. You can see that sharp increase. The chart here is rather complicated, but the top line is really what I want to communicate here. Companies that are growing less than 25%, publicly traded companies, have a CAC payback period somewhere between 2.5 years and 6 years, which creates massive financial pressure when you think about EBITDA line items and enterprise value. And you can see on the right-hand side where it says sales and marketing percentage of net new ARR, the companies that are growing 0 to 10% or 10 to 25%, big numbers in terms of how much it's taking them to pay back the cost of acquiring just one customer. And the key thing to know when we look at the private sector, and my company, Paceto, has run this exact analysis on more than 50 private B2B companies, mostly mid-market companies between 30 million and 300 million ARR, that these trends are amplified in private companies. And so growth rates are slowing more significantly and customer acquisition cost payback periods are increasing more significantly, which leads to the concept of go-to-market bloat. Let's explain this concept. B2B companies invest a ton of money in sales and marketing and do not get the appropriate return. That is more or less the concept of go-to-market bloat. Sales and marketing expenses are by far the largest line item on a B2B company's P&L, more than 2 to 3 times the amount of product engineering and R&D. And go-to-market bloat occurs across the entire go-to-market in terms of people, programs, processes, and technology. And the lack of acceptable ROI on sales and marketing expenditures creates massive financial pressure on profitability, the ability to achieve Rule of 40, and overall enterprise value. And there's been a shift over the past about 2 years from the middle of 2022 when we started to see the slowdown in the economy, the shift from the growth at all costs era to the profitable, efficient growth era, where valuation multiples on B2B companies, specifically SaaS and tech companies, have been compressing a lot, that growth rates have slowed, which puts a lot of pressure, and that in terms of a mature or a growth stage B2B company, that fixing go-to-market efficiency is now the #1 problem in the ability to improve enterprise value. And so what I want to talk about today is a concept that we're calling signal-based analytics. I'm sure a bunch of people in the market have heard about the concept of signal-based selling or signal-based go-to-market, which is a great concept that takes either third-party data or first-party data and is now using that to trigger sales outreach and maybe the use of AI. And when you start to use those tools and start to use those processes, we also need a new way to look at the analytics to understand what signals actually matter, what signals drive sales productivity, and that's what we're going to talk about today, which I believe is the fastest way to optimize your go-to-market strategy and investments. And so first off, let's look at the high-level SaaS revenue growth process. Here you basically have the front end, net new acquisition. We have to get net new accounts in market to buy. Then those accounts show intent. We have to capture that intent into meetings, and then we have our sales team try to convert that into pipeline. Then you have the expansion and renewal process. The key point that I want to make here is that the process of converting an in-market account into a closed-won customer, a net new customer, is by far the most expensive process in a B2B company. And that process falls right here. In my data in private companies, up to 80% of total sales and marketing investments, including account management and all the marketing and brand investments, up to 80% of total sales and marketing costs are deployed at that specific part of the process. And signals is the way that we're able to look and analyze this to be able to quickly optimize and rapidly optimize this part of the process. And so signals, what are signals? They track person level and account level intent data. Signals are an entirely new dimension of data that go along with contacts, accounts, campaign members, and opportunity data. And that signals that are specifically actioned by sales when we invest human capital into trying to go and convert that signal into a meeting, into pipeline, need to be tracked through the process, which create clear, large-scale data points that we can use to optimize. So you can see up here the process. There's effectively a trigger. Sometimes we spend marketing dollars to trigger. Other times we use a third-party platform like an ABM platform or Trust Radius or User Gems to create a trigger. We detect the signal, then a sales alert happens. Sales is then going to follow up, and we need to track that all the way through the process to see whether we're able to convert it to a meeting, to qualified pipeline, and eventually into a closed-won customer. And in a mature B2B go-to-market engine, if this data was tracked, you create millions of data points every single year, which create clear patterns in the data around what things are working and what things we're doing with our sales team that are totally unproductive. So where do signals come from? Many people are familiar with first-party signals that come from product data or marketing qualified leads or some type of MQL scoring or our events or our website form fills. But now we have all these other second and third-party platforms that introduce an entirely new level of signals coming from ABM platforms or MQAs, third-party lead generation, intent data providers, contact data providers. And the way that B2B companies set up their analytics, these two things are looked at completely separate. They look at the marketing data as first party, and they look at outbound as all this third party. And we do not have a unified view to look at all these signals together to understand what are the best places to invest our marketing dollars as well as our sales resources and sales development resources. And so we've developed a concept at Paceto, and many other companies are working on this, a unified pipeline architecture where we redefine the concept of pipeline, where right now it's defined where pipeline is the time an opportunity is created, and instead we look at the definition of pipeline from when a signal happens, when an account is in market, and then all the way through. And so when you look at this, you actually have a much more clear, granular view about what's happening across the entire process for your entire go-to-market, not just at the opportunity level when the sales team's being involved. And when you look at this, I'm trying to break down the cost here because there's a significant investment that happens in this part of the process. Most of the marketing dollars get spent to create a signal. Think Google Ads, lead generation, other forms of performance marketing, events and conferences, webinars. The majority of the marketing budget gets spent to create and trigger signals. SDRs and MDRs are basically 100% allocated to this part of the process. And then we have a sales team that could just have AEs, but also solutions consultants or sales assistants and ops and admin resources. And the key point that I want to make here is that if we're able to connect the signal data all the way to closed won, signals really matter in terms of sales productivity and being able to achieve actual ROI. This is data that we see consistent across more than 52 companies. We've been able to prove it out 100% of the time, that sales productivity can vary by more than 100x depending on the signal. I've shown this here as an example. Example signal here, third-party lead gen would be the signal. The trigger would be a cold ad on Facebook. You can see sales velocity and revenue figures. And then on the other side, you can see a website chat signal that was triggered by web direct chat. And the sales velocity, I think that's more than 1,000x higher sales velocity and significantly more revenue generated. And then when a B2B company has this, these are just 3 data points, but in a B2B company, typically there'll be thousands of different signals, and we're able to track that data and look at that data very granularly to understand what is the best time to deploy sales resources, but also where should we deploy marketing investments to the signals that drive a lot of sales productivity. Additionally, if you think about account segmentation in a more mature business where you're targeting SMB and mid-market and enterprise and strategic, or maybe by geography with North America and EMEA, that you can layer the data between signals and account segmentation, understand why do we win for this exact segment or this exact geography, and quickly improve go-to-market efficiency in how you deploy your investments. The thing that I want to communicate as well is that in a normal B2B company today, that the outcomes of the signals are mostly not tracked. B2B companies are historically tracking first-party signals with marketing automation, although those signals are typically not complete. That outbound is generally a black hole that we're able to comp the SDR or comp the sales rep on the meeting that they booked, but that we don't know why they actually reached out, and we can't see the patterns in that data that lead to the signals. That intent data and sales alerts are tracked but not actually linked to the outcome. So if you think about a sixth sense or a demand base or a trust radius, that they provide the signal, but they're not in the business of actually measuring that signal inside of the CRM to give you the data around what's working and what's not. And then if you don't track the signals, you basically have no data about all the times your sales team or SDR team does something where they lose. There's a concept in B2B data that I view as survivorship bias, that if you're going after a large enterprise account, you might be reaching out to that account or to a person inside of that account 100 or 1,000 times before you actually close it. But the data gets overwritten every time, so you only see the one time that you won at the end, not the 99 times that you lost at the beginning. And the fastest way to optimize your go-to-market is to look at all the times that you lose and then be able to stop doing those things and reallocate resources appropriately. And so just to recap here, the transition from the growth at all costs to profitable, efficient growth requires fundamental changes in how we think about our investments in go-to-market, but also our analytics around our go-to-market. That go-to-market bloat, I believe, is the #1 issue in B2B companies from a financial standpoint, and a lot of the work that we do at Paceto is coming down to CEO and CFO level conversations around how much should we be spending on sales and marketing, how should we forecast and plan, what should our customer acquisition cost payback targets be, and do we need to reverse engineer or build our financial models in a different way to support this new era of how we're going to run our SaaS business. That signals provide clear, obvious insights about how to optimize your strategy and your go-to-market, but most companies largely do not track those data points, so they don't able to see that data. And that intent data and ABM platforms and signal aggregators provide a lot of data, but are not in the business of measuring that data or providing you that data inside of the CRM. And so, really quick chat about go-to-market optimization. Hope I picked these people up about 5 minutes. If you want to learn more, you can direct message me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to set up a call and just talk through signals. There's no sales pitch here, but if you want to learn more about what we're doing, really happy to do that. I also have about 15, 20 of the most recent podcasts on my B2B Revenue Vitals podcast that are logged about signals, as well as go-to-market bloat. So feel free to, I'll leave this up for a little while. Feel free to scan the codes and feel free to reach out to me. So I appreciate you all being here. Thank you. Hope it was valuable, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.